What is a percent? This video is designed to build your conceptual understanding of what percentages are. So what does 75% really mean? What does 33% mean? What does 1% mean? What does 100% mean? A percent tells you how much you have of something. And what can be confusing is that something can change. Let's think about an easy example, something that you're probably familiar with. A test. Let's say that you are taking a test and you get it back and you get an A+ on that test. Good job for you. But what does that mean in terms of percentage? That means that you probably got 100% on your test. 100% on your test. That's talking about all of the questions, right? All of the questions on the test, you got all of them right. You got all of that something. You have all of that something. The something is the questions, and you've got all of them. So you got 100%. That means all of something. You have all of something. You have all of the questions right. You have 100% of the questions right. Now, we said that percents tell you how much you have of something. Well, let's say that you were actually taking that test and maybe you didn't do so well. Maybe you got a B, right? Maybe you got a B on that test, and that's okay, but what does a B mean in terms of percents? Well, a B means that you have less of the questions right? The questions right is the something, and you have less of that. You have less of that. So you only got about 85% correct. You only got about 85% correct. So all of the questions are this something, and you only have 85% of them. Now, you don't have all of the questions right. You have less than all of the questions right. So you have less than 100%. Right? You have 85%. You have 85%. Let's go even further. Let's say we failed this test. Right? Usually failing a test means you get less than a 50. So we failed it. We failed it totally. Well, that means that we got less than a 50%. So what's less than a 50%, right? If I got 50% of the questions right, I got half of the questions right. I had 10 questions that said I just got 5 right. That would be 50%, because it's half of the questions. So let's say I got 47% of my questions right. That means I got less than half. Less than half. So percents are talking about how much you have of something. In terms of a test, it's talking about how many of all of the questions that you have did you get right. Well, if you have 47%, you have an F. You have an F on your test because you have less of something. It's telling you, well, of the questions you could have got right, you have less than half. You've got less percent of those questions right. Let's move on to a different example, because percents aren't just for tests. Percent aren't just for tests. And I'm gonna get rid of this failing grade because I don't like it up here. I'm gonna go back to our A+ before we move on. A+ is, again, 100%, all of the questions right. So let's say that you got that A+ on that test, and now you're like, wow, I am feeling great about myself. What I need to do is go buy some boots. I need to go buy some boots because wintertime is coming up and I want a new pair of boots to go with my A+, 100%, all of the questions right. So these boots you see on sale at the store, they are $125. $125. But we can get them for 10% off. We can get them for 10% off. So the store is going to charge me $125, right? But I only have to pay them 90%. Why? Because they're going to take away 10%. So the store is going to go ahead and discount 10%. They're going to say, you know what? You don't have to pay that 10% because you're an awesome person, because we want you to buy our boots. right? For whatever reason, they're going to take away 10% in the form of a discount. Discount. You guys definitely know about discounts, and discounts often comes in percent, so it's important to understand how to find out how much you're actually saving. So 125, they're going to give you 10% discount. Now think about it. The whole thing, all of the $125, that would be 100%. All of $125, right? You got all the questions right, you got 100%, all of the $125, that's 100%. In this context, 125 is 100%. In this context, we're talking about a test, all of the questions right is 100%. So we've got 10% discount of a total 125. What percent left, what are we going to have to pay? Well, if we took 10% away from 100%, we had 100%, that's $125, that would be 100% of what we're paying. We took 10% away, how much left is there? Well, if you have 100%, you take 10% away, works just like whole numbers, so I have 100%, I subtract off my 10%, I get 90%. 90%. And that's because 90% plus 10% would be all of the shoes, right? They're going to take off a percent discount, and I've got to pay the rest. I've got to pay the rest. So this is what I pay. I'm going to pay 90%, and I'm going to get a discount of 10%. If we add up the discount, the amount they took away, and the amount I actually paid, we get back to 125, which was the original price of the shoes. So if they're giving you a discount, you want to know how much of a discount? How much of a discount? Well, 10%, that's only like a little bit, right? Because the whole thing is 100%. So you still have to pay 90%, or a lot, almost 100% of the original price. So again, in closing, percents tell you how much you have of something. The closer you get to 100, the closer you get to having the whole thing. The closer you get to 0%, the closer you get to having none of it, having nothing, right? Percents are out of 100. 100% means all of it. 0% means none of it. As we go up to 100%, we get closer and closer and closer to having all of it. As we go down to 0%, we get closer and closer and closer to having nothing.